Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, text 21. Prathaktvena tu yajnanam
Prathaktvena tu yajnanam
nana bhavan prathakvidha
nana bhavan prathakvidam
veti sarveshu bhuteshu
वेति सर्वेषु भूतेषु
ajnanam vidirajasam.
tajnanam vidirajasam.
विधिराजसम्.
Would someone like to read?
I can read today.
Okay.
Translation. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity you should understand to be in the mode of passion. Purport. The concept that the material body is the living entity and that with the destruction of the body, the consciousness is also destroyed is called knowledge in the mode of passion. According to that knowledge, bodies differ from one another because of the development of different types of consciousness. Otherwise, there is no separate soul which manifests consciousness. The body is itself the soul, and there is no separate soul beyond the body. According to such knowledge, consciousness is temporary, or else there are no individual souls, but there is an all-pervading soul which is full of knowledge, and this body is manifestation of temporary ignorance. Or beyond this body, there is no special individual or supreme soul. All such conceptions are considered products of the mode of passion.
Yesterday we heard Krishna speaking about knowledge in the mode of goodness, where one can see everyone as spirit soul. One is seeing that whether one is in the body of an animal or a human being, dog or dog eater, one with the vision of knowledge can see that these are all spirit souls. And by different choices, one has gotten different bodies. Now, knowledge in the mode of passion is that by seeing that, oh, that there is no soul, but the body and soul is together, in the sense thinking that, oh, this person, this soul is a human being, this soul is a dog. So there's no real concept of soul, but just consciousness of the body. Thinking that when the body dies, the consciousness is dead. That, there's no separate soul beyond this material body. So looking at everyone differently, not understanding that even if one is in a body of a dog, that is still a soul. But thinking, oh, this is a dog and this is a human being. Of course, even when one understands that these are all different souls, this is a dog and this is a tiger and this is a human being, one will behave with them differently. Like he'll go and embrace a human being, but he's not going to go embrace a tiger, even though he understands it's a soul, the man in the mode of goodness. So the way he behaves with different will be different, of course. But the basic knowledge, underlying knowledge in the mode of goodness is understanding that, oh, these are all souls, and by different choices, they have different bodies. But in passion, one does not have a concept of a soul, but thinks that, okay, it's just the body, only the body, there is no soul. And so one sees differences based on the body, that one is a dog and one is a human being. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Just kindly give me a minute. I'll just be back.
Yeah.
Yattu Krishnavat ekasmin
Yattu Krishna vad ekashmin
karye saktam ahaitukam
karye saktam ahetukam
atat varthavad alpam cha
atatvarthavad alpam cha
tamasam udharitam.
tattamasham udharatam. Translation. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. The knowledge of the common man is always in the mode of darkness or ignorance, because every living entity in conditional life is born into the mode of ignorance. One who does not develop knowledge through the authorities or scriptural injunctions has knowledge that is limited to the body. He is not concerned about acting in terms of directions of scripture. For him, God is money, and knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. It is more or less like the knowledge of the ordinary animals, the knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Such knowledge is described here as the product of the mode of darkness. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond this body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. Knowledge producing many theories and doctrines by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation is the product of mode of passion. And knowledge concerned only with keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of ignorance.
So now Krishna is speaking of the mode of ignorance, knowledge in the mode of ignorance. And Prabhupada is explaining it very nicely here. Knowledge in the mode of goodness is understanding there is a difference between the soul and the body. And in mode of passion, there is no such distinction as such between body and the soul, but one has put forward different philosophies, mental speculation. And in mode of goodness, one is not even putting forward any philosophy. It's more kind of an animalistic life, only concerned with eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That is mode of ignorance. That there is no even any space to think of anything else other than eating, sleeping, mating, defending. In passion, at least one person is rising beyond those daily needs and bodily needs, and thinking, oh, there's some kind of a mental activity going on, in the sense thinking of some kind of a theory or some speculation, or maybe things could be this, or maybe it could be like that. But in goodness, one understands, oh, there's a difference between the body and the soul. Niyatam sangarahitam
Niyatam sangarahitam
ragadveshata kritam
araga dveshate kritam
phala prepsuna karma
afala prepshuna karma
yattat sattvikamuchyate.
yattat satvikam uchyate. Translation. That action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results is said to be in the mode of goodness. Purport. Regulated occupational duties, as prescribed in scriptures in terms of different orders and divisions of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, and performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Supreme, without self-satisfaction or self-gratification, are called actions in the mode of goodness.
Then Krishna is going on to, first he spoke about knowledge, mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Now Krishna is speaking about action. What kind of action? How is it connected to which mode? So he's saying one which is done as a matter of duty. There's no particular attachment or a detachment. So one is just doing his duty. One does not want to enjoy the results of it, but one is performing it for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. God has given me this duty to do. I'm going to do this duty because it is my position to do it for the satisfaction of God. That is in the mode of goodness. So acting as a matter of duty without being particularly attached to enjoy the result of that activity, offering that activity to God. It could be anything. It could be even taking care of family. Oh, I need to take care of my family because everyone is part and parcel of God. So my family members are also part and parcel of God. So let me serve them to the best of my capacity as a service to God. Then that becomes in a mode of goodness. Yatu kame suna karma
Yattu kamipsuna karma
saha karena vapuna
sahankarena vapuna
kriyate bahulayasam
kriyate bahulayasam
tad rajasam udaratam.
tad rajasam udaratam. Translation. But action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires and enacted from a sense of false ego is called action in the mode of passion.
So we heard in the mode of goodness, one is acting as a matter of duty without attachment to the result. Here, in passion, one is attached to the result because he's saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get this. My desires will be fulfilled. And one is taking a lot of endeavor because there's a lot of desires in the mode of passion. So one is always acting to fulfill those desires from a sense of false ego, thinking I am the doer. I'm going to act in this way. I'm going to fulfill my desires. So there's the central focal point is to fulfill the desires. In goodness, the focal point is to perform the duty. Here, the focal point is to fulfill the desires. Anubandham shayam himsam.
Anubandham shayam himsham
Anapeksha cha paurusham.
anapeksha cha paurusham
Mohat arabhyate karma.
mohat arabhyate karma
Yatta tamasamuchyate.
yattat tamasam uchyate. Translation. That action performed in illusion is in disregard of scriptural injunctions and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport. One has to give account of one's actions to the state or to the agents of the Supreme Lord, called Yamadutas. Irresponsible work is destructive because it destroys the regulative principles of scriptural injunctions. It is often based on violence and is distressing to other living entities. Such irresponsible work is carried out in the light of one's personal experience. This is called illusion, and all such illusory work is a product of mode of ignorance.
Krishna is speaking of the mode of ignorance, where one does not care for the what the rules and regulations of the scriptures are. One is even ready to cause violence to others, distress to others, because one is not able to understand what one is doing. So one does not follow the scriptures, one's actions are causing distress to others, one's actions are violent. So this is in ignorance, not understanding that there are going to be consequences. Mukta sango nahamvadi,
Mukta sango naham vadi.
dhriti utsaha samanvita,
Riti utsaha samanvita.
siddhi asiddhyor nirvikara,
Siddhi asiddhyo nirvikara.
karta satvika uchyate.
Karta satvika uchyate. Translation. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the material modes of nature. He has no expectations for the result of the work entrusted to him, because he is above false ego and pride. Still, he is always enthusiastic till the completion of such work. He does not worry about the distress undertaken. He is always enthusiastic. He does not care for success or failure. He is equal in both distress and happiness. Such a worker is situated in the mode of goodness.
So Krishna is speaking about how the worker in the mode of goodness, he's performing his duty, rising above the modes. So this is the pure devotee here. Prabhupada is giving. A Krishna conscious person is always transcendental to the modes of nature. You see, this goodness, passion, and ignorance, they are always influencing our activity. They're influencing whatever we are doing. Now, to rise above the modes is a liberated platform. Means one is acting at the platform of soul. So he's understood. He is not expecting any result. He's understood, I'm not the body. I'm a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. So he's doing his duty in Krishna consciousness. He's doing his hearing and chanting or his service to Krishna as it is needed. He's enthusiastic, he's determined, he's equal in distress and happiness because he's not looking for material pleasure anymore. He's already experiencing a higher pleasure being in Krishna consciousness. He's experiencing a higher pleasure, understanding, oh, I'm not the body, I'm the soul. He has realized such a knowledge. So this is the pure devotee. He's transcendental to the modes of nature. No expectation for the result. Not working of false ego. He's enthusiastic. He's not concerned of how much endeavor he has to put. He just knows he has to do his duty. He has to do his hearing, chanting, worshipping, preaching, whatever. He's not concerned with success or failure. Ragi karma phala prepsur.
Ragi karma phala prepshur.
Lubdo himsatmako shuchi.
Lupto himsatmako suchu.
Harsha shokanvita karta.
Harsha shokanvita karta.
Rajasa parikirtita.
Rajasa parikirtita. Translation. The worker who is attached to work and the fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow is said to be in the mode of passion. Purport. A person is too much attached to a certain kind of work or to the result because he has too much attachment for materialism or hearth or home, wife and children. Such a person has no desire for high elevation in life. He is simply concerned with making this world as materially comfortable as possible. He is generally very greedy and he thinks that anything attained by him is permanent and never to be lost. Such a person is envious of others and prepared to do anything wrong for sense gratification. Therefore, such a person is unclean and he does not care whether his earning is pure or impure. He is very happy if his work is successful and very much distressed when his work is not successful. Such is the worker in the mode of passion.
So in the mode of passion, there's a lot of attachment because we said there's a lot of desires to enjoy. So that is mode of passion. So there's person in the mode of passion, he's very attached to what he's doing. He's very attached to what he's getting out of what he's doing. He's attached to how he can enjoy the world. And because of this attachment, sometimes he's happy, sometimes he's sad, depending on the result. And because his desires are so strong, he does not care how he fulfills those desires. So there's a lot of activity, a lot of desires in the mode of passion. So we can see, everybody says, oh, work with passion, but actually working with passion is not such a good thing. Krishna is trying to tell us work as a matter of duty. That's what he's trying to make us understand, because that is working in the mode of goodness. Ayukta prakrita stabdha
Ayukta prakrita stabdha
Chato neshkriti kolasaha
Satho neshkritiko lashaha
Vishadi dirga sutri cha
Vishadi dirga shutri cha
Karta tamasa uchyate.
Karta tamasa uchyate. Translation. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. Purport. In the scriptural injunctions, we find what sort of work should be performed and what sort of work should not be performed. Those who do not care for the injunctions engage in work not to be done, and such persons are generally materialistic. They work according to the modes of nature, not according to the injunctions of the scriptures. Such workers are not very gentle, and generally they are always cunning and expert in insulting others. They are very lazy, even though they have some duty. They do not do it properly, and they put it aside to be done later on. Therefore, they appear to be morose. They procrastinate anything which can be done in an hour. They drag on for years. Such workers are situated in the mode of ignorance.
So at least in passion, has desires, one is fulfilling those desires. One is attached, but one is like kind of progressing materially. But in ignorance, there's not even that kind of progression in material life because one has become lazy then, procrastinating the work to be done, working against the scriptures, not understanding how to act, how not to act. And so one is engaged in cheating or insulting, is lazy, morose, morose because not doing what one is supposed to do, that creates a kind of, a moroseness in a person, procrastination. All this is mode of ignorance. Buddhir-bhedam dhriteshcheva
Buddhi bhedam dhriteshchaiva
gunatas-trividam shrinu.
gunatas vidam shrunu.
Procyamanam asheshena
Prochayamanam asheshena
prathatvena dhananjaya.
prataktvena dhananjaya. Translation. O winner of wealth, now please listen as I tell you in detail of the different kinds of understanding and determination according to the three modes of material nature. Purport. Now, after explaining knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower in three different divisions according to the modes of material nature, the Lord is explaining the intelligence and determination of the worker in the same way.
Krishna spoke about knowledge, how one sees based on different modes, how one acts based on different modes, what are the results of acts, of such acts based on different modes. Yeah. Like in a goodness, one is kind of feeling general happiness and passion. There is happiness and distress. In ignorance, there is moroseness. So now he's going to explain the intelligence and the determination. Pravritim cha nivritim cha.
Pravritim cha nivritim cha
Karya karye bhaya bhaya bhay.
karya karye bhaya bhay
Bandham moksham cha yaveti.
bandham moksham cha yaveti
Buddhi sapartha satviki.
buddhi sa partha satviki. Does anyone want to continue reading?
Yeah, I can read.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yeah. Translation. Standing by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is bonding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. Purport. Performing actions in terms of the directions of the scriptures is called pravritti, or executing action that deserve to be performed, and actions which are not so directed are not to be performed. One who does not know the scriptural directions becomes entangled in the actions and reactions of work. Understanding, which discriminates by intelligence, is situated in the mode of goodness.
So Krishna is speaking about the intelligence in the mode of goodness, that one is using the intelligence, one is able to understand, I should do this because this is mentioned in the scriptures. And I should not do this because this is mentioned in the scriptures that it is not to be done. And so then one understands properly, the intelligence is proper, what is to be feared, what is not to be feared. That, I will get sinful reactions if I act in this way. So better let not me to be act in this way. Better to let me act according to the scriptures. I will get bound to the material world if I act in this way. Better I act in a way as a matter of duty, offering the results to the Lord, so that I don't get bound in the material nature. And like this, one gets liberated gradually. One acts in a way as a matter of duty. He knows what's to be done, what's not to be done. He's working for the pleasure of God. So he has a good understanding, so good intelligence. That's why it's called intelligence in the mode of goodness. Yaya dharmam adharmam cha.
Yaya dharmam adharmam cha.
Karyam cha karyam eva cha.
Karyam cha karyam eva cha.
Ayathavat prajanate
Ayathavat prajanati
buddhi sapartha rajase.
buddhi sa partha rajati. Translation: O son of Pratha, that understanding which cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion, between action that should be done and action that should not be done, is in the mode of passion.
So in the mode of passion, the intelligence is not very clear, not able to understand, oh, this is in the scriptures, I should do this. This is against the scriptures, I shouldn't do this. So that's not very clear in this mode of passion. And that's the reason there could be confusion that, oh, what should I do this or should I not do this? So one is not able to understand what is a wrong action and what is a right action. Adharmam dharmam etiya.
Adharmam dharmam iti ya
Manyate tamasavrata.
manyate tamasavata
Sarvarthan viparitamscha.
sarvarthan viparitamscha
Buddhi sa partha tamasi.
buddhi sa partha tamasi. Translation: that understanding which considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion under the spell of illusion and darkness, and strives always in the wrong direction, O Partha, is in the mode of ignorance. Purport: intelligence in the mode of ignorance is always working the opposite of the way it should. It accepts religions which are not actually religions and rejects actual religion. Men in ignorance understand a great soul to be a common man and accept a common man as a great soul. They think truth to be untruth and accept untruth as truth. In all activities, they simply take the wrong path. Therefore, their intelligence is in the mode of ignorance.
Now, in the mode of ignorance, one is thinking the opposite. One is thinking, oh, this is what is religion. They're considering it actually as irreligious. So we can see how the intelligence is really so much in ignorance that not able to understand that this is actually religion, but taking it to be irreligious. And something which is irreligious, one is glorifying it. So one is condemning real religion and one is glorifying irreligion. All this is under the spell of illusion. So doing the wrong activity and thinking it's the right activity. So the intelligence is it's in the reverse way. This intelligence is completely in the mode of ignorance. The intelligence is guiding in the opposite direction. Goodness, the intelligence is directing in the correct direction. Oh, this is religion, this is irreligion. Do this, don't do this. Do it as a matter of duty. And one gradually is getting liberated. In passion, there is some confusion. What should I do? What should I not do? What is religion? What is not religion? So there is some kind of deliberation yet, But in ignorance, one is not even deliberating something. One is just whatever what is actual religion, one is thinking it to be irreligion. And so working completely against the principles of religion. And so one will go more and more downward, more and going in the wrong direction. Dhritya yaya dharayate
Dritya yaya dharyate
mana pranendriya kriya
mana prane driya kriya
yogena vyabhicharinya.
Yogena vya abhicharyanya.
Dhriti Sapartha Satvike.
Dhriti sa partha satviki. Translation. O son of Pritha, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses, is determination in the mode of goodness. Purport. Yoga is a means to understand the Supreme Soul. One who is steadily fixed in the Supreme Soul with determination, concentrating one's mind, life, and sensory activity on the Supreme, engages in Krishna consciousness. That sort of determination is in the mode of goodness. The word avya vicharanya is very significant, for it indicates that persons who are engaged in Krishna consciousness are never deviated by any other activity.
So determination in the modes of goodness, unbreakable, steadfast by yoga, by which, and so what happens? The mind is controlled. This is determination in the mode of goodness. Mind is controlled, life is going in the correct direction, senses are controlled. So determination in the mode of goodness. Prabhupada is pointing out, what does yoga mean? Yoga is linking to the Supreme, understanding the Supreme, understanding God. We may think yoga means just some physical exercise, but yoga, the real purpose of yoga is to understand God. So one who makes God the center of his life, one is determined to understand God, one is determined to serve God with one's mind, with one's life, with one's senses. And so then he engages in Krishna consciousness. So this is determination in the mode of goodness. One is saying, I'm going to work for the pleasure of God. One wants to, one is determined to work for the pleasure of God. One is determined that I'm going to serve God with my body, mind, and senses. So this is determination in the mode of goodness. So the devotees, determined to serve God. And so their determination is in the mode of goodness. Yayatu dharma karmartham.
Yayatu dharma kamartham.
Ritya dharayate arjuna.
Dhritya dharatya arjuna.
Prasangena falakangshe.
Prasangena falankanshki.
Riti sapartha rajase.
Dhriti tatsa partha rajati. Translation. But that determination by which one holds fast to fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification is of the nature of passion, O Arjuna. Purport. Any person who is always desirous of fruitive results in religious or economic activities, whose only desire is sense gratification, and whose mind, life, and senses are thus engaged, is in the mode of passion.
So in the mode of passion, because desires are so much, so desire to enjoy is a lot. So one wants to enjoy the results of dharma, artha, kama, and perform some pious activity. Because of that pious activity, get some wealth or some opulence. With that opulence, enjoy. So in mode of passion, there is great desire for enjoyment. And so one engages one's body, mind, senses towards fulfillment of the desires. So we saw in mode of goodness one is working as a matter of duty for the pleasure of God. One is determined to serve God. That becomes determination and mode of goodness. Determination to enjoy our own senses. That is determination in the mode of passion. Yaya swapnam bhayam shokam.
Yaya swapnam bhayam sokam.
Vishadam madam evacha.
Vishadam madam evacha.
Na vimunchati durmedha.
Na vimunchati durmedha.
Riti sa partha tamasi.
Dhriti sa paratha tamasi. Translation. And the determination which cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion. Such intelligent determination, O son of Pritha, is in the mode of darkness. Purport. It should not be concluded that a person in the mode of goodness does not dream. Here, dream means too much sleep. Dreaming is always present, either in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. Dreaming is a natural occurrence, but those who cannot avoid oversleeping, who cannot avoid the pride of enjoying material objects, who are always dreaming or lording it over the material world, and whose life, mind, and senses are thus engaged, are considered to have determination in the mode of ignorance.
So in ignorance, there is the illusion is too much. There's too much lamentation. There's too much fearful. For dreaming, Prabhupada is explaining that even a person in the mode of goodness and passion is dreaming, but in the mode of ignorance, one may sleep too much. One is sleeping too much. And what kind of dream one enters? That too much pride that I am the Lord. I am, that the false ego is too strong. One is always wanting to enjoy to control, lording it over material nature. So one gets proud, one becomes very controlling, and so one's life, one's body, one's mind is just going in that. Too much control, too much sleeping, too much fearful, too much of lamenting, morose. This is unintelligent determination. So determination in the mode of ignorance, too oversleeping, too much sleep. Sukham tva idanim trividham.
Sukham tav idanim trividham.
Shrinu me bharatar shabha.
Shrinu me bharatar sabha.
Abhyasad ramate yatra.
Abhyasad ramate yatra.
Dukhantam na nikachati.
Dukhantam cha nigachati. Translation. O best of the Bharatas, now please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness by which the conditioned soul enjoys and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. Purport. A conditioned soul tries to enjoy material happiness again and again. Thus he chews the chewed, but sometimes in the course of such enjoyment, he becomes relieved from material entanglement by association with a great soul. In other words, a conditioned soul is always engaged in some type of sense gratification. But when he understands by good association that it is only a repetition of the same thing and he is awakened to his real Krishna consciousness, he is sometimes relieved from such repetitive so called happiness.
So Krishna is speaking about the happiness, about the three kinds of happiness by which the conditioned soul enjoys, and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. So here in the material world, we are trying to enjoy the material world. We have done it since millions and millions of births, we are trying to do it. We are not finding it here, yet we continue doing it. That is called chewing the chew. Like there is no rust in the chewing gum anymore, but we still continue to chew on it, thinking that something will be there, something will be there. So we are here trying to find this kind of happiness in the material world. Now someone may get association with a devotee. And when in association of a devotee, one can get this good understanding that, oh, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to do the same thing, And then one may get Krishna consciousness. And one can find happiness in Krishna consciousness, put an end to distress. Because if we go to see, since millions of births, that's what we are doing. We are trying to find happiness here. But we are not able to find that degree of happiness, that level of eternal bliss which we are searching for. So then one with association of a devotee, with some great fortune, one can come in the association of a devotee and can understand such a thing. So he's relieved from such repetitive so-called happiness. We keep doing this, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. We're doing the same things. Not able to understand that we are actually doing the same thing. We may have different varieties, different ways of eating, different types of eatables, but the activity is the same. Yat tad agre visham eva.
Yat tat agre visham eva.
Pariname mritopamam.
Pariname mrito pamam.
Tat sukham satvikam proktam.
Tat sukham satvikam proktam.
Atma buddhi prasadajam.
Atma buddhi prasadajam. Translation: that which is the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one of self realization is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. Purport: in the pursuit of self realization, one has to follow many rules and regulations to control the mind and senses and to concentrate the mind on the self. All these procedures are very difficult, bitter like poison, but if one is successful in following the regulation and comes to the transcendental position, he begins to drink real nectar and he enjoys life.
Oh, happiness in the mode of goodness. So Krishna is saying beginning is like poison because one is like, oh my God, we don't like to follow rules and regulations. It becomes very difficult for us, but yet one does it. And then the result of such activity, one becomes happy, awakens to self-realization. So in Krishna consciousness, one has to follow rules and regulations. They may seem like, oh my God, why do I have to hear? Why do I have to chant? But if one can actually do it, following it, one will get liberated and one will enjoy the real nectar. It only has to be done. We feel, oh, it's like a bitter medicine, it's poison. But if one is able to actually do it, be determined, no, yes, it is poison, but I know it's good for me, I will still do it. Then one can enjoy transcendental life, can enjoy, but become self-realized, become happy, mode of goodness. Vishayendriya samyoga.
Vishayendriya samyogat
Yattad agre mritopamam.
yattat agre mritopamam.
Hariname visham eva.
Pariname visham iva.
Tat sukham rajasam smritam.
Tat sukham rajasam smritam. Translation: that happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects and which appears like nectar at first where poison at the end is said to be the nature of passion. Purport: a young man and a young woman meet, and the senses drive the young man to see her, to touch her, and to have sexual intercourse. In the beginning, this may be very pleasing to the senses, but at the end, or after some time, it becomes just like poison. They are separated, or there is divorce, there is lamentation, there is sorrow, etc. Such happiness is always in the mode of passion. Happiness derived from a combination of the senses and the sense objects is always a cause of distress and should be avoided by all means.
We heard about happiness in the mode of goodness. The happiness that one does the duties, one follows rules and regulations, one does the hearing and chanting, and then one can feel the real pleasure, real happiness. And happiness that we get when we engage our senses to the sense objects, that will lead to distress. Prabhupada is here giving the example, young man, woman, they come together, they are happy initially, but it may end somehow or the other. It's temporary. And when it ends, it causes distress. It may end as divorce or it may end in death. Then there is going to be distress. So there is in beginning happiness, but in the end there is distress. That is happiness in the mode of passion. We can see also, like when we like to eat something, so we may eat, we begin eating and we are feeling happy. And then what will happen is we may tend to overeat it. And when we overeat it, it will cause different types of distress, maybe heartburn or upset stomach or, you know. So when the senses want to enjoy with the objects of the senses, that kind of happiness, in the beginning it seems very nice, but it will end in distress. Yad agre cha anubandhe cha
Yat agre chanubandhe cha
kam mohanam atmanam
sukham mohanam atmana
nidralasya pramadotham
nidralasya pramadotam
tamasam udaratam.
tat tamasam udaratam. Translation: and that happiness which is blind to self realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be in the nature of ignorance. Purport: one who takes pleasure in laziness and in sleep is certainly in a mode of darkness, ignorance, and one who has no idea how to act and how not to act is also in the mode of ignorance. For the person in the mode of ignorance, everything is illusion. There is no happiness either in the beginning or at the end. For the person in the mode of passion, there might be some kind of ephemeral happiness in the beginning and at the end distress. But for the person in the mode of ignorance, there is only distress both in the beginning and at the end.
So goodness in the beginning seems like poison, but in the end, one enjoys real transcendental happiness. Just like when one takes up the process of Krishna consciousness. In the beginning, it's like poison. We don't want to hear, we don't want to chant. But when we are determined to do it, and then gradually, one can start experiencing the pleasure, transcendental happiness. In passion, the senses want to enjoy with the sense objects. So initially there is pleasure, but it results in distress. Could be like overeating. And ignorance, so this kind of happiness, blind to self-realization, delusion, oversleeping, lazy. One is lazy, one is sleeping too much. So there is no kind of happiness there. There's no kind of enjoyment there. It's just darkness. This is mode of ignorance. is one does not know how to act, how not to act. So there is kind of distress, more distress in the mode of ignorance. There's no happiness, only distress, both in the beginning and at the end. So almost like animalistic life. So there's a lot of distress. The animals have a lot of fear, a lot of suffering. It's just illusion. One does not know, can't use the intelligence, what I should do, what I should not do. This is mode of ignorance. Are there any questions or comments?
No, all good.
Thank you so much for listening and joining in today. Shila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.